Keep your filthy kids away from decent families before they cause
Please stay
problems.
calm.
The venom in Officer Brandon Cole's voice was immediate, a shocking assault on the quiet peace of Willow Creek Park. Aisha Sterling, a black woman with the quiet intensity of tempered steel, sat on a bench, her gaze fixed on her 8-year-old daughter, Lena, who was joyfully ascending the climbing structure. The air around the playground froze. Parents on nearby benches halted their conversations, sensing the sudden, aggressive shift. Aisha stood, slowly, her movements deliberate, every inch of her 5'9" frame radiating calm authority. "Excuse me, officer," Aisha said, her voice steady and pitched low, a counterpoint to Cole's aggression. "What precisely is the issue here?" Cole, his face contorted in a sneer of undisguised contempt, closed the distance. "The issue, ma'am, is people like you thinking you belong in spaces reserved for families who value order. Pack up your little troublemaker and move along before this escalates. People like me." Aisha's eyes narrowed slightly, a spark of challenge igniting in their depth. "What exactly do you mean by that, officer?" The slap came without warning, a sickening, visceral crack that echoed across the entire park, momentarily silencing the birds. Cole's open palm connected with Aisha's cheek with brutal force. Children screamed. Parents reacted in a flurry of movement, some grabbing their kids, others fumbling for their phones. Lena dropped from the jungle gym, sobbing as she ran toward her mother, terror etched across her face. But Aisha Sterling did not cry. She slowly turned back, her long, elegant fingers raising to touch the burning, already swelling bruise on her dark skin. "Officer Brandon Cole, badge number 8804, she stated, her voice quiet but piercing, carrying across the stunned, silent audience of the playground. What Cole, blinded by his arrogance, did not know was that he had just assaulted a decorated federal agent. A black woman who had been systematically documenting his pattern of racial abuse and discriminatory policing for the last 3 weeks. 3 hours earlier, Special Agent Aisha Sterling, 12 years with the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division, had been reviewing her surveillance files in a sparsely furnished apartment in Fairview Heights, a community in the South Sector. Her assignment was the culmination of countless ignored complaints, systematic harassment of Black and Latino families by local law enforcement officers, specifically targeting Officer Cole and his partner. Families had reported being driven from public facilities, children inappropriately searched, and parents humiliated, all complaints that had mysteriously evaporated into the administrative ether of the Metropolitan Police Department. Aisha had spent 3 weeks embedded in the community, building an airtight case for federal prosecution. Her cover was meticulously crafted: a single black mother, a data analyst with a flexible schedule, whose daughter loved the playground at Willow Creek Park. It was the perfect position to observe Cole's routine patrols and document his violations. Her secure, government-issue phone vibrated with a message from Deputy Director Grant Davis. "Status update on surveillance. Evidence confirmed." Aisha tapped out her reply. "Pattern confirmed. Multiple constitutional violations documented. Recommend continuing cover to secure final, irrefutable evidence." Davis's response was immediate. "Understood. Maintain cover at all costs. We need this case to hold up against institutional defenses." Aisha glanced at Lena, who was practicing soccer moves in the living room with intense concentration. Her daughter had no idea their park visits were dual purpose: quality time and a critical federal operation. "Mama, can we get that ice cream after the park today?" Lena asked, her face bright with anticipation. "How did you?" Because, reclaiming her seat, Ava said, "I am exactly where I belong." The power in the cabin shifted like gravity reversing. "Shall we fly?" she added, "or conduct an audit at altitude?" The captain's jaw locked. Reed whispered, "We isolate her in the galley. If isolation solved corruption," Ava replied without looking back, "this world would be spotless." Liam glanced at his monitor. "System just updated again. Her manifest shows executive priority." Reed's eyes darted. "That's impossible." "What's impossible?" Ava murmured. "Is accountability without witnesses." The passengers were no longer passive. Phones pointed forward like a tribunal of light. "You can't accuse us," Reed stammered. "I'm not accusing," Ava said. "I am observing. You called security on a verified passenger. You call me honey. Which part was policy?" The captain exhaled sharply. "Enough. We'll sort this when we land." Ava smiled faintly. "By then, Captain, the world will already have judged you." The cabin lights flickered. Turbulence rocked the plane. Reed clutched her tablet. The audit alert pulsed brighter, spreading to every crew device. Liam whispered, "It's locking us out." Reed looked stricken. "What's she doing?" Ava gazed out the window at the endless blue. "I warned you," she said softly. Protocol Starlight was stage 2. The engines steadied, but a deeper unease filled the air. Somewhere behind the cockpit door, alarms blinked silently, system override, pending verification. The captain's voice trembled for the first time. "Who are you really?" Ava turned, her smile unreadable. "You'll know before we land." The captain finally stepped closer. "If you're who you claim to be, prove it." Ava held up her phone. The screen displayed an active conference feed. 3 solemn faces framed by the Viridian Global Holdings logo. The woman in the center spoke, her voice calm and cold. "Captain Davies, we are aware. Continue to cooperate with Miss Vance. She is the acting owner representative for this flight." Gasps swept through the cabin. A mother in row 3 covered her mouth. Ms. Reed's face was ashen. "This is a setup. You planned this." Ava's answer was quiet and final. "No, I expected this. There's a difference." She stood again, smooth and deliberate. "Captain, I want this flight grounded for immediate staff review upon landing at O'Hare International. No crew member continues duty until compliance clears the report." He swallowed hard. "Understood." Ava looked around the cabin, her gaze soft but unyielding. "When I board a plane, I do not bring noise. I bring consequence. And today, that consequence has arrived." The weight of the revelation settled on every row. Ava leaned back further than necessary. She repeated the captain's earlier words. "You dragged me to the edge of humiliation and called it procedure. Now that the truth is louder than your comfort, you call it unnecessary." Liam, tears welling in his eyes, whispered, "I am sorry, ma'am. I should have spoken sooner." Ava looked at him and spoke softly. "You just did." The tide had turned. Dozens of phones were now pointing toward Ms. Reed. Ava's phone buzzed. "Legal confirmed. Do you wish to proceed with personnel review?" Ava typed one word. "Yes." Reed's tablet immediately blinked red. Access ID locked. The captain's console flashed. "Crew status under review. Command privileges suspended." "This is not a glitch," Ava said, a calm center to the storm. "It is accountability live and in motion." A soft computerized voice spoke from her phone. "Miss Vance, confirmation of active review. Continue flight operations." "Continue," Ava answered. "The passengers deserve to reach their destination." Ms. Reed slumped into the jump seat, defeated. "They're going to fire me, aren't they?" Ava turned her head slightly. "You fired yourself the moment you believed humility was beneath you." As the plane leveled out, the air in the cabin shifted, the heavy tension replaced by a heavier respect. The passengers were silent, witnessing a living lesson. Ava closed her eyes for a moment. 38,000 feet, and still we were learning how to rise. The captain's voice finally returned over the intercom, subdued. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will continue our route to Chicago. We apologize for any earlier confusion." The landing gear lowered with a distant rumble. The lights of Chicago spread below like scattered constellations. Ava knew the journey was not over. Liam stood beside her, his shoulders squared. "I will give him the truth, Miss Vance. I won't edit it. Honesty is the only turbulence that creates real change." Ava confirmed. A ripple of quiet applause began in row 4, spreading slowly. Ava bowed her head slightly. They're clapping because they saw themselves in the story. She whispered. The wheels touched down. The plane taxied to the gate. The usual rush never came. Everyone sat waiting, watching. Ava stood and faced the cabin. "Today was not about me," she said, her voice firm. "It was about what happens when respect is dependent upon recognition. That ends with us refusing to play along." As she turned to leave, the passengers rose in quiet solidarity. Ava looked at Liam. "Keep speaking. Change does not start with power. It starts with permission, and we just took it back." She stepped into the jet bridge where reporters waited, bright lights flashing. "Miss Vance, was this a publicity stunt?" A reporter shouted. She stopped, looked straight into the lens, and said, "No, it was a reflection. The world saw what bias looks like at 38,000 feet now. Let us see how high integrity can fly." She walked on, leaving behind a profound stillness, a standard set at altitude.